it now gives me great pleasure to introduce Paulette Randall, which is why we're here. So, and just to give you a heads up, for those of you who remember, this is your life. There'll be elements of that. All right. Oh, excuse me. So only a few are nodding. It was like, no, not my time. Past my time. But what can I say about Paulette, who is in her manor, even though they say Herne Hill, it's Brixton. Theatre, film and television director and producer. Paulette Randall was born and grew up in South London.
Here.
Brixton, to Jamaican parents, working in Brixton Market from an early age, inspired her love of theatre through the characters she met and the stories she heard. At 18, she attended the Rose Bruford College of Speech and Drama, and after graduating, Annie, we're not at that point yet. After graduating, she set up the Theatre of Black Women with fellow students Bernadine Evaristo and Patricia St-Hilaire, chiefly in response to the lack of black roles for women actors. Fast forward, and Paulette continues to break down barriers, from producing iconic TV comedies such as Desmond's and The Real McCoy in the 80s and 90s, to being the first black British female director to bring a production to London's West End, August Wilson's Fences in 2013. As well as a long career in theatre, including as artistic director of Talawa, she was associate director for the London 2012 Olympics opening ceremony. Spectacular, beautiful, wonderful. I sat with people from Serbia and other countries because we can get tickets. And it was interesting because we ended up in a really heated and beautiful discussion around the importance of the NHS. This whole idea that it wouldn't translate, it translated. Obviously alongside Danny Boyle. Her TV career hasn't dimmed.
Along with.
Her TV career hasn't dimmed, with her directorial flourishes to be found on shows including The Wives, Coronation Street, Waterloo Road, Casualty, EastEnders, and that's just for starters. So in 2015, Paulette received an MBE for services to drama and an honorary doctorate from Brunel University, and in 2016, she was given a Lifetime Achievement Award for her work as a director and playwright in film and TV at the inaugural WOW Creative Industries Award at the South.
Wow!
Who
is she? Oh, that's me!
It's really important because this whole thing, I've just skim past it, because I think that we all want to bear witness, I think, to what you've done and achieved. So I'm going to be in conversation with Paulette for about 40 minutes because something tells me there's going to be a lot of questions. But I want to welcome you, Paulette, and it's so lovely to host you in Brixton, where it all started, where you attended St Jude's Primary and Dick Shepherd Secondary School. What memories do you have of that time? Because what I find curious is that your sister Beverly, who you've worked with, is also in the industry.
She was, yeah, for a while. What was the question?
Yeah, so
it's going to go well, isn't it?
Yeah, so Brixton, growing up here.
Well, it's. I still feel, whenever I come back here, I still feel like I've come home. Although I've lived up in, Clapham, which is not that far for you that don't know the area. It's about a mile away from here. But my primary school was Railton Road, which is this road. And in fact, it's a church that, it's now a church, but that was St Jude's. And so my whole world was round here. It was like what they now call Poets' Corner. It wasn't that, it was just Shakespeare Road, Milton Road, whatever the road was, right? So it was just that, but it was amazing because I felt... I guess because there was the community was huge, it felt to me, and you couldn't do that thing of if you thought you could mess up or behave badly, someone would see and it would get back to your home before you did. So there was a really close, and I quite liked that. Although I was very naughty, but I did like that aspect of being part of something that was much bigger than your home.
And what was the distractions for you at home? Because I know you moved around.
Yeah, well, that's because my mum and dad split up because, as my mother put it, then she couldn't take tea with my father. So they just couldn't be very civilised. They were very good at doing the other stuff, so they made me and my sister, but, that's about it. But they were great parents. It happened sometimes. So that's why we kept moving.
But what I'm impressed by is the fact that your dad also moved with you. Even though you didn't live together.
I know.
He moved
I didn't work it out for ages because my dad was always round the corner from me. And that was because my mum kept... So we'd move. Back in the 60s, you'd get... So you'd rent a room in a house, say, and you'd share a kitchen, and, you know, it was very, very close and all that. So sometimes we'd arrive somewhere, my mum would say, oh, yes, we can stay here, so you can unpack. And then other times we'd move to another room somewhere in another house, and she'd no, nobody unpack the car, we're not stopping. And my dad would move so that we didn't have to be too far away. We could always get to him.
And that's actually quite modern.
It's a shame they couldn't make it work, because they were great, actually, separately. Donna knows what my dad was like. Yeah.
But in terms of you and your sister and TV at that point, I mean, what was it around the arts that piqued your interest, if it did at that time when you were growing up?
I don't think it was so much the telly that did that, because, you know, we're talking about... A lot of the time we didn't have a telly because we were living in one room, so you were lucky if you had a radio. So you used to listen to, like, the Clitheroe Kid and stuff like that, radio shows. But I think it was really that my mum was a great storyteller. So she had to entertain us, really. So she was like our first TV, really. And when we lived at the top of Royalton Road, Mr. Dawkins was our landlord, and he had a telly. And we were allowed to go and watch one programme a week on Mr. Dawkins' telly. So we'd go, and my sister and I, we'd... Hello, Mr. Dawkins, can we come? Yes, come in, girls. We'd come. Sit down like this. Thank you very much, Mr. Dawkins, and come out. I can't remember what the programme was. I was talking to my sister about this ages ago. I said, I can't remember. Was it... It was some American thing that came on the telly, but, you know, so that was it. So, not the telly, but my family, my immediate family, aunts and uncles, and whenever you went to visit, which we did a lot because we were living in rooms so we couldn't entertain, but you'd see all your cousins and aunts and uncles, and that's where you would hear stories, and that's where you would see this whole world that was completely different to what was happening at school, completely different to what was happening at the church, which was on Dulwich Road, which was a very, very high C of E, and you had to go to the church in order to go to the school. So it was very, very English, but, you know, the rest of it was... at the weekends, it was very, very Jamaican.
But you said you didn't have to go to church.
Well, after a while, we had to rebel. So, no, we had to. Because I don't understand what these people, I'm not even going to mention it, my mother sent us to, we had to go to the C of E church on Dulwich Road, which was, as I said, at that time when we were young, it was still kind of very high C of E, so incense swinging and singing in Latin and all of that. And then she thought it would be really good if we got a balance and we went to a Pentecostal church in the evening. So the whole day was spent in a church somewhere. But the Pentecostal church wasn't round here. So Sister Cole would come and pick us up, and we'd have to get in this van and go to this. And so the night that we rebelled was my sister and I and our stepsister, Sandra, decided that we'd had enough of this.
I know the story.
Yeah, okay, so, just very briefly, so we're in this church and it's packed and it's all happening and people are in the spirit and we've just had enough. So we sneaked off to the loo and we thought what we'll do is we'll just get out the toilet window and run away, just go home. So, great plan. I think I was halfway through the window, my sister was on the toilet bowl and Sandra was kind of guiding the door, and then all of a sudden Sister Cole arrived and we got dragged back into the church and they stopped the service because clearly we were possessed by the devil and they had to pray. And I just remember kneeling at the front and looking at with these hands on my head and looking at my sister going, never again, never again. So we appealed to my mum and she said, okay. So we didn't have to go anymore. But oh my God, it was horrible.
That there was a script, there's a show waiting to be born from that story.
Probably.
But you grew up in the 60s.
Yeah.
And, you know, we got the next generation here. And one thing that was still very apparent, and people may conveniently forget, the signs, no dogs, no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. Yeah. You were seeing that around you. And I want to come to something that you said in your TED Talk, when you said you're not overtly political, but yet you joined the School Kids Against Nazis.
Yes, I did.
And you co-founded the
I know,
Black Women. No, but I'm curious about how you...
Well, I suppose because
political.
Well, I guess because when I've met other people who I would call political activists, they just seemed far much more eloquent. They seemed far more clear-minded and steadied and kind of visionary in a way. And I've never seen myself as that, so I never put myself in the same camp. And you know, when you got people that you look up to and you go, oh my God, you know, it's like meeting Linton for the first time, way back when I was quite young, and Dark as How, and people like that. It was like, oh my God, these people are incredible. So, yeah.
So you were comparing, but so what did that instill in you then? Because, I mean, the fact that you joined School Kids Against Nazis, that's a very distinct, intentional thing.
Yeah.
And then also, you know, Theatre of Black Women, very clear purpose. So what does that say about you?
I think it says that certainly something about the way I was raised, because we were acutely aware of colour, which is what a lot of it is about, actually. You know, when people they go, it's your colour, it's this that they're frightened of, or they're rebelling against, or they're having a whatever reaction to. So there were loads of things that my mum kind of instilled in my sister and I. So things like really simple, but really quite powerful and profound. So when before I went to school, you know, you were told, don't let people put their hands in your head, because people used to rub your head for luck. White people did when we were kids growing up. So, and when you think about it, at the age of 5, what was kind of considered to be precocious or force ripe, when you had to say to people, please don't do that, because my mum has told me that you can't touch my hair, so don't. I was 5. And I was saying this to an adult, so of course they saw you as rude, or as, you know, but you were just doing, quite rightly, looking after yourself. So all the way through, my mum said to us, some people will like you, some people will love you, and some won't because of this. Really early. When I was going off on brownie camp holiday for a week in Kent, I thought I was going miles away, it was amazing. My mum said, remember, you are an ambassador for your people. I was 6. You can't, you know, when you're being kind of raised in a way where you have to be aware of what you're doing, and you have to think bigger than what you are. Because someone said to me, isn't that a load? And I was like, no, it kind of meant that, for one, I was working out what ambassador meant for about 2 days. And it also meant that I kind of behaved, which is what my mum wanted, because, you know, I'm representing my family, I'm representing my people, so I got that. And then I remember when I was about, I don't know, 13 maybe, something like that, I said to her, Mummy, is it true that I've got to be twice as good as white people? And she said to me, what if you are already? Okay. So it gives you a different way of looking at things, at life.
But your mum was a sage, but she felt also, just from a few things you said about her in the few interviews that you've done, very spiritual, because she'd go to a space, isn't it, and say, Miss Spirit, feel good here. Yeah. And then she'd move, and then you think, that's a cue, we're moving.
Yeah. Don't unpack.
I want to take you back to Rose Bruford.
Okay.
When you studied community theatre arts. And I just want to quote Bernardine Evaristo, you know, the Booker Prize winning author. So I met Paulette on the first day of drama school. The Rose Bruford College of Speech and Drama, and as it was then called. It was September 1979. Do you want some wine in terms of what's coming? And we were new, and we were new students on the community theatre arts course. And Paulette and I were part of an unprecedented intake of 5 black women at a time when drama schools were hostile to accepting black women. Paulette was so full of life, vivacious and funny, and I was bowled over. I'd never met anyone like her before. Even today, Paulette is the most exuberant and mischievous force of nature. The passing of time has not dimmed her light. Everyone loved her at drama school, and she was lovely to everyone. So why I wanted to sort of share that with you. Yeah, there's more. But you know, it's, you know, I think when you think about the time and then the nature of the course, because community theatre arts, and I'm sort of linking it back to you saying you're not as political.
I know.
As dark as how. This is a beautiful sort of foundation building. Your mum, and then this. So you studied community theatre arts, and what you loved about it seemed is the fact that you connected with communities. It's almost like early co-production in a way, isn't it? And that you always then had an opportunity to place your work in a wider context. You were operating in a bubble. So what was it like with you, Patricia, and Bernardine at that time?
It was amazing because we were, you know, young, but felt we were there for a reason. You know, there's a reason why there's 5 of us here. And when you get out the station, at that time, I remember the first winter in Sidcup, the local people used to stone us with snowballs, but with rocks in them. And we would just be going to, and we'd go into one of the local pubs, and there was a firebomb one time, and then there was, it was horrible. Really, really hostile. So you had to you couldn't walk around kind of going, oh, I'm just being a drama student and I'm just having a lovely time. No, it was fierce. It was fierce. So you had to know, and you had to kind of keep working out what it was all about and how you would respond and how you would therefore change things.
And by having your community in a way, you know what I mean? Because normally if there's three of you, that constitutes a protest. What did you leave with after the 3 years?
Listen, for a start, we weren't all on the same hymn sheet to begin with, right? You know, but that was interesting because then that meant that we were all going to be on a journey. And in fact, I do remember that the very first Sunday they had this kind of tea where you could meet all the other students and everything. And I saw these other women and I said, listen, I don't know about you, but it'd be great if we could do something together at some point in our 3 years. And the first reaction made me feel like I was Angela Davis. You know, when you go, I wasn't saying anything radical, I was just saying, wouldn't it be great if we make sure that within the 3 years we do something? And it was kind of like, okay. But, you know, we got there. We got there.
That's a part of the story that's, more prominent now. And the thing is, it's interesting you saying that because that seems to reflect, I don't know if you saw the Thames TV interview with Paulette, Bernadine and Patricia, and there was 4 young black women there as well, and a white male interviewer. Oh my gosh. And it was interesting because one of the young women was saying about, it's almost like what you've argued for in terms of being a director. I just want to be seen as a writer. I don't know why I have to bring race into it. I don't see, I'm paraphrasing. And so I think it's interesting that setting up the theatre of black women and then engaging with these young black women so publicly. And I remember you saying, having to explain, because you know you've got this going out to millions of people at that time, and then you've got these young black women almost like saying, I want to write, but I don't really want to sort of, it's almost like you were making the case and Bernadine were making the case for the theatre, and they're saying, well,
don't really want to make too much noise about the black thing.
Exactly. But you were, you referred to the fact there's double oppression and there's a need for a stronger platform than, they already had at that time. I mean, do you feel the same now?
Well, listen, things have changed. Things have improved a bit, but we've still got a way to go, I would say. We've still got lots to do because, the fact that we're having to even question whether or not things have improved, it says it. It answers it. It hasn't, not enough. Not enough. You are still, I thought that I would get to the age where, in terms of being treated like an equal, that I would have arrived and it would be all fine and it would be, they would understand that, of course, I've been around a long time, I've done a hell of a lot, so of course all the respect is no sirree Bob, no, because there are still some people who, it doesn't matter what you've done and how you present yourself and what history tells them, they just look at you and they go, well, no, because you're black and you're still 2025.
Well, you called the 80s sort of a golden period purely because at that time, in terms of the working class writers movement, the feminist movement, the fact that, and I mean, this has been discussed now as well, the fact that you had seemingly, allegedly more black and Asian, South Asian theatre companies than you do now. And so, what was that like being in that period where it's almost like, if you think about that happening now and you setting up a similar theatre now when we're supposed to be modernised, that there would be pushback because obviously look what's going on now. But what did that enable you to do?
Well, you have to put it in context for a start. So, back in the 80s there was, you had Ken Livingstone running the GLC. So you had people who were advocates for and supporters in what you but these people, the pioneers, were already setting these things up, like Linton. So all of those things were kind of happening and in place. And it was about us kind of going, well, there is that opportunity, so I'm going to grab it as well. So you did have companies like Gloria's company, names. There were so many. You'd remember her. Donna, help me. Anyways, it will come back to me. But there were loads. Yes, so you're right. And it did feel like we were in a slightly kind of golden age, but it also meant that we weren't in any other theatre. We weren't in the established theatre in a major way because we were getting on and doing our own stuff. So, it was like, yes, that's fine, but it doesn't really count. So even when you were doing work, you would get reviews, and the reviewers, because they didn't really, they'd either say it's wonderful, and it was sometimes shit, but because it was a black company, they'd go, oh no, it was wonderful. It was like, no, we have to be critical. We know. So, it's when you start to kind of see things shifting and moving. But when we did do fabulous stuff, it was either like, well, they're hostile or they're, you couldn't win really. But things are changing, but it's still not quite there.
But the thing that's very much the same, though, is the fact that you were running the theatre and still having to, you did work during the day, you were running workshops for young women to
because we
earn
didn't
a
have any
living, and
funding,
then rehearse in the evening.
Yeah.
So again, this whole thing where even if you didn't want to be an activist or an advocate,
no
you
choice,
end up
really. Yeah. But thank God we were open to it and kind of knew that was going to be the deal. Bernadine and Patricia and I, it was, we kind of went, we know it's going to be something. Yeah, a journey.
So the thing is, you transition from being an actress to being just in training, because I know that it wasn't a career that
Donna,
was
what are
for
you going to say? What?
They're more a writer.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, you know what, Rose Bruford, you trained, but no one can teach you how to act. I'm a great example of that. You can learn so much. You learn skills, you learn, you kind of read stuff and you do amazing things physically and you can kind of, and emotionally, you know how to engage. But if you can't act, you cannot act. And no one can teach you. So, fortunately for me, and also because of the nature of the course, we were encouraged to write our own shows. So out of that came a one-woman show that we all did, and then we took that to, when we formed the company, we took that to Amsterdam, and that was brilliant, an amazing experience. But then we started writing plays, so or trying to. And this again was like, just from a desire, no training or anything like that, but believing that if you can tell a story, there is a way that if you can think wider than just yourself, then maybe you can find a way to... And also, that was the ethos, really, of the course, which was about doing theatre for or about particular communities of your choice that you wanted to explore, support, whatever.
And the course doesn't exist anymore.
No, it doesn't.
Which is a shame. We need it
more
than ever.
Yeah, I think so.
And the thing is, you also, going back to the writing, Donna, is it young people's... writing festival,
the Young Writers Festival at the
Royal Court, and the fact that your extract was directed by Daniel Boyle.
I know, but then he was just the director of the theatre upstairs. He hadn't started doing films or anything like that. But that's why I get the phone call for the
Olympics.
Yeah. So I'd said to him in rehearsals for my play, I think I want to do what you do, and he said, well, talk to Max. I went, who's he? I was such a Philistine. Max Stafford Clark. So anyway, I went and spoke to Max and just wouldn't let it go until he said yes. And then I was assisting Max. But while I was there, Max was doing like maybe 1 or 2 shows a year. That's not enough to keep this person on. So I just kind of went around the building and assisted anybody that I could. Sometimes it was just in the casting department for a show, or with Danny, I did assist him on a show upstairs. So when 30 years later he says, he rings me up and says, apparently I'm going to... Do you know what I'm doing, Paula? I said, I've told you what you want. Because you don't ring me and now you're... What? I said, everybody knows what you're doing. What do you want? He said, I think I'm going to need some help. And because of the fact that I'd worked with him, and also he knew that I'd done television and I'd done all sorts of other things in my own right. So there was enough of a skills base there to understand what the job was going to be. So yeah. And I did tell him never call me again. No. Never call me again. A year of my life. It was wonderful. It was wonderful.
And you were really... It was interesting because, again, just speaking to that theme of community, however you define that community or the communities that you build, how you perceived and engaged the volunteers. as part of it, isn't it? And the fact that they became more confident through engaging with you, and and they were almost like your theatre troupe, your theatre company.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think because the background and foundation is theatre, the same with Danny. It's you start off in that way, and you go, well, we're going to do a show, and this is our cast, and I mean, you can't do it without the volunteers, and you can't do it without engaging in them in a way that makes them completely buy into what you're doing, and feeling that it's theirs. So it's about empowerment. It's about all of those things that you do anyway with work. So yeah, just did it on a bigger scale.
And with less of a budget than some of the other...
Oh, well, yes, yes, I know. But you know what it's like?
They go impressive.
Yeah. It was like, well, it is the opening ceremony. Let's get that right. It did cost a lot of money, though, but yeah.
I want to come to someone else now. Clint Dyer, who is the Deputy Artistic Director of National Theatre. Before I ask my next question, he says, we should call her Paulette Leader. Paulette has trailblazed in the face of so much racism and sexism and still managed to forge a career. And it's funny, when we talk about artists that have managed to survive a career in the arts, we never really acknowledge that you've got the difficulty of trying to forge a career in a completely competitive market. And then what black people have to do is also face it and really try and defy racism. Now, it's not only difficult to do it with the type of grace that Paulette has shown, it's also difficult to manage oneself throughout that. And over the years, I've always seen work of such high quality from her. It astounds me, and I'm always in such high respect for someone who can be so positive and heartfelt and open and joyous about an industry that she's had to fight for her space in for so long. All right, this is what happens when you call. Right, so I think, and I just want to come then just to quote you, where you say, wouldn't it be great if I could just be a director, forget race and class like white middle class men can. And I just think, putting your statement together, just to be able to be free to do the work, and the fact that, you've just got on with it, and but behind the scenes there have been those trials and tribulations, and yet you're still here doing amazing work. So what do you want to share in relation to that? Because it's almost like this is the black artist way.
I think one of the things that I've never really been afraid of is being honest and confronting when you need to. So there are so many examples. It's like, okay, there was
Five Guys Named Mo.
Sorry?
Five Guys.
Well, that was sexism. Black guys being really just ridiculous, to be quite honest, just ridiculous and horrible. And I just decided that I don't want to work in an environment where people are horrible. So I think I was, well, first of all, they told me I was too young, and what am I doing directing a show called Five Guys Named Mo? I'm not a guy. And I was like, you're ridiculous. But anyway, so I remember they accused my designer of being a racist because he was white, and he had designed some suits for the guys that were in these amazing colours. And he said they just want them to look like... I said, no, it's not that. We're talking about Louis Jordan. And, we've done the research, and we kind of... Anyway, he left, and the whole thing was starting to fall apart. And I thought, right, if I go, it definitely will fall apart before we open, because I can't leave these two guys. It was the vocal arranger, a guy called Chapman Roberts, and the choreographer. And they were just vile. But they came from, as they said, you don't understand showbiz. They come from a world, it's an American thing, and then you're supposed to have blood dripping off the walls in order to have a hit. And I'm like, well, if that's what it is, I really don't want to work with you. So anyway, I stayed until the first performance. And then I called a production meeting the following morning, and I just said, with all of the guys there, and it was all men. Anyway, and I said to them, right, do some notes from last night. Just got to ask, is there, and I know you're not happy with me, and you're not happy with the way things are going, is there anything that I can do that can change that? And then they just started, well, you should do that. And I said, okay. Once they've stopped shouting, I said, all right, you know what? I wouldn't work this hard at a marriage. Have it. Have it. And I left. And they said, but how's it going to look? I said, it's going to look how it is. That's how it's going to look. You're black guys and you've treated me, a black woman, like this. That's how it's going to look.
And just to say, because you were Theatre Royal Stratford East, and then it was transferring to the West End.
Yes, but we knew it was going into. That's why they behaved so badly.
I wanted to make sure that.
I was like, oh my God, but really, it means that much? Well, apparently, yes.
Well, it didn't stop you getting there in 2013, but anyway.
No. But can you imagine? I'd have done it when I was 24.
That's my point. Yeah, exactly. That would have been amazing, but nothing before. But
who knows? But who knows what that might have done to me? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you don't exactly. You don't know. They might have twisted up my head. They might have said, "You see, now this is what needs to happen, and you need to now." Yeah. Everything in its time.
And how much you've done since as well.
But also not to let that. Listen, I don't want people to think it didn't hurt me, because you invested so much in it, and it really hurt because I hadn't done anything to make these people behave that way. I'm still like a child in that sense. I don't understand why people are horrible to you if you haven't done anything horrible to them first. I don't get it. If I do something and I know you upset, I know it's my fault. That's all right. I'll hold my hands up. And in fact, I probably did it deliberately. So you know what I mean? I'm not stupid, but in that sense, I still get really hurt because I care about what I do. And I want it to be the best that it can possibly be. And I want everyone to be in an environment where they feel that they can contribute and be open and safe, which is what I think theatre should be and all of that. So.
In a way, you were saying that if you did get the West End at 24, some of those lessons may have been lost because the very thing you value, they reinforce that in you about why it's important. So when I'm in a particular position, this is how I'm going to engage with the people that I work with and who entrust me with their words. I want to come to August Wilson.
Oh yes.
Who you have directed his work 6 times. He's and out of a 10 series, and he's made it very clear that he'd be happy for you to do the remaining 4. What is it about his work that speaks to you? I mean, 5 of those was at the Kiln. A Tricycle, which is now Kiln. And obviously 1 Duchess Theatre in the West End. So, what is it about the women in his work? And
well, funnily enough, when I first started doing August's play, I said, "You don't write a lot of women, do you, August?" And he was like, "Aunt Esther's coming." I was like, "Well, hurry up, just get." But he said, "But I'm a man," and I was like, "Oh, this is really interesting because actually." Quite right. Tell the story from that. There are some writers that are really gifted in writing all sorts of things. He's great at writing for women, by the way. But he's really wanted to tell that male story. That was part of his journey. And when you talk with him and you understand all of that, you go, oh, thank God. Thank God. I was just being outrageous, really, with him. But what was lovely was, so when I first met him, I had never seen any of his work. And I hadn't read any of his work. Anyway, I get sent off to meet him in New York, and I thought I'm just going to be honest, because my producer had said read these plays and study them and do it, and I was like no, that reminds me of being at school when you have to cram for exams, and some people were really good at that and some no. So I thought I'm just going to be honest when I go. So I met him and I said, Mr. Wilson, I'm really pleased to meet you. I just have to say something. I have to get this off my chest straight away. I've never seen any of your work. And I kept, in my head, I was going, Tony Award winner, Pulitzer Prize winner. What are you doing, Paulette? I said, right, I've never seen any of your work and I haven't seen any of your plays. But I have read this one, which was the piano lesson. Okay. And I said, and I love it. So I'm really thrilled that I'm going to be directing it. And he went, I don't go to the theatre much myself. And I fell in love with him, and that was it. We just started talking. Forget the play, we just started talking. And I said to him, the most important thing I want to take away from this kind of weekend meeting in New York, never been to New York before, and I go and I meet this amazing man. I said, I want to be able to take a bit of you into that rehearsal room, because apparently you're not coming. He said, yes, that's right, I'm not coming. I said, okay, so keep talking to me, tell me about you. So that's what we did.
And I think it's really interesting that you, the honesty that characterises what you do, and the fact that then he could be honest with you.
Yeah.
Gem of the Ocean.
Oh, yes.
One of your favourite.
Yeah.
And Carmen Monroe, Jenny Jules. Dame
Carmen Monroe. Yeah, last! Yes! Dame Carmen. She's not here, but she's got it. Yeah. Good. Acknowledge us, yes?
So what did you love about it?
I think because it was looking at our history. It was taking you back to Africa. It was doing the whole, just allowing us to kind of go, where are we from? What are we about? And why it's important that we know this, so that we're not ignorant. We're not, I mean, he talks about the city of bones, which is under the sea, where, we know in the transporting of enslaved people, we were dash overboard. So that's really, those stories, it's incredible. We have to understand that, and also take empowerment from that, and not be seen as something lesser than.
And do you feel, because there's still discussion about the fact that theatre is still filled with a lot of the African American narratives, and where do you sit with that, and are there any stories out there that you really want to engage with? I mean, you've worked on a range of different productions that are British based, but what's your response to that?
Well, I think what's happening now is that they're doing alterations, which is Michael Abinset's play, which hasn't been done for, I don't know, 30, 40 years maybe. Yeah. So that's great, and that was also part of that whole thing of I was really very strongly behind, let's make sure that we don't let our stories die. So, names at the moment, my brain. But Trinidad Sisters.
This is
thank you, Mustafa Matura. All of that, so those plays are still being done, and I'm still about encouraging our new writers as well, because we've still got so many stories. There are loads of plays, when you talk about in the 80s, there were loads of plays that were written and done and stuff and performed, but a lot of them were in reaction to things that were happening to us politically at that time. So they might not have lasted, but there are some that have. And so we have to keep doing them, but also it's about how we encourage our new writers to tell their stories too.
And it's funny because when you think about Bernardine's been doing that in publishing, getting the finding the forgotten stories and getting them republished. And I'm thinking about also playwrights like Paulette Randall, who was trained as an actress and thought, I'm not seeing any parts of me, I've got to write my own plays. Michaela Cole in a way as well. Yeah. So I want to come back to when you said about when you heard from Dan, you said, why are you ringing me after 30 years? You often, Riley, joke about the 5 months, the 6 months, the 7 months where you spent time on your sofa watching Doctors on BBC, and then everyone presumed, straight after doing the Olympics opening ceremony, that your phone would be ringing off the hook. That hasn't been the case, and I think again about speaking to the reality of what it is to be doing amazing work as a black woman, as a director and a producer, and after Will McCoy, the fact that you did it and said, right, okay, what next to me, and they're saying, can you read some scripts, and you were like, no. So what have those lean years taught you? Because in those outside obviously watching the Doctors, things must have been forming in your mind about what's important to you, what you wanted to do. Yeah,
when I want to stop people from talking to me and asking me questions, I just go, I was doing that, and that stops them. So I don't have to engage in anything other than that. Of course I was reading, I was doing all sorts of things. But, because if you know that this is what you want to do, and I knew this from the age of, in fact, I would have been 19, so I'd had my first year at drama school, and I knew that I was meant for this world. I didn't know quite in what capacity, but I knew that this was the world that I was going to be in. So whatever it was, there was nothing that was going to stop me from doing whatever it was I was going to do. I didn't know what it was then, and I just allowed myself the time to discover that. Probably that's why I ended up doing all sorts of different things, like producing and script editing and writing and now directing and, all of that.
So you weren't scared of the space and the quiet?
No. And also, in this industry, the chances are you're going to be sitting down a long time. There's going to be occasions where, nobody wants Paulette. That's interesting. I better be ready when they do. Yes. Or when I come to them with something,
So you have made such a significant impact on audiences, and particularly black artists and viewers. I don't know how often, because you don't do many public events, they get a chance to actually share that with you. And I want to bring in Carol Russell, who's in the room, and also who says, and Carol Russell is a award-winning screenwriter and a great tutor as well. I've been on one of her courses many, many years ago.
She's
amazing.
So amazing.
The Three Little Birds.
Yeah.
So the thing I love about Paulette is the freedom she gives you as a writer and an actor. That freedom gives you confidence because it means that you are trusted, and that trust translates into creativity. When I worked with her and her fabulous sister Bev on Cleopatra Coming At Ya, I'm going to do the kick, but I don't want to risk it. It was that freedom of both of them that allowed me and the other two writers to do something I've since been told is nigh on impossible.
Yeah.
That is to write a script from idea to script in 1 week, and that included getting sign-off to go to script.
Yeah.
I carry those days with me into every industry meeting I take and every writer's room I work in.
It is possible, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah.
So I mean, you are on record talking about the fact you didn't want to act, but you absolutely admire what actors do and that they're unique.
No, I didn't. It's not that I didn't want to act. I couldn't.
Okay.
I'm a show off. Of course, I wanted to be able to act.
Take the gift when you're being given it. But what I haven't heard much of, I'm not saying this is no cast aspersion to you in any way, shape or form, but how do you work with writers? What do you get and enjoy from working with writers? And how do you work with writers?
I mean, Carol, we talked and we kind of discussed what we thought the thing was going to be.
Yeah.
And talked about how we could maybe start.
Yeah.
And then you just, I
writers
don't know, I know, but you kind of go, but it's their voice. And then, yes, and then we talked, and then you guys, in that attic.
Yeah, oh God.
They were writing, it was amazing, because it really felt like we'd actually set up our own little factory.
Yeah.
So we had the writers upstairs, and then Bev and I, who were the producers, were downstairs, and we just kept, that was open the whole time, that channel, so we just kept working in that environment. None of the other production companies were doing anything like that, and they were like, and also they kept saying, you're having a great time, you guys, are you actually doing any work? Of course we are, yeah, because they could hear us laughing.
But how do you feel about when you're hearing your peers say how they see you and how they experience you, not just as an artist that they may or may not have worked with, but also the impact that you are having on them? You know, being called a leader.
I know, it's
how do you feel?
overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not, no.
You are just like soap maestro at the moment.
At the moment, I know.
How are you finding that? Because EastEnders is we now have one of the most grueling schedules. So
it's not nice.
No.
And the older you get, the more you go, I have to be where? At what time? I'm there at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then you have to stand up all day, and you get an hour for lunch, and then people want to talk to you in your lunch breaks. When does it stop? So it is exhausting, but it's amazing though, because listen, I never set out to do soaps and things. I wanted to. I got the opportunity to do directing for the screen, right, which I'd never really thought about, because I thought, oh no, that's too technical for me, and I can barely answer the phone, and I'm not interested in anything kind of like technical in that sense, but I still love telling stories, and there was an opportunity to do Holby, in fact, was the first one. So then I did that, and I thought, I quite like this, because ultimately I'm doing what I love, which is working with actors, and there's writers involved, so there are new stories being told all the time, yada yada yada. But what's happened now is, because I go in there like this, so they go, oh my God, oh, she's different. She's not like all those other directors who've got their plans and things all worked out. And now it's really working to my advantage, because they are experiencing, in a way, what Carol was talking about and what other people have spoken about, which is, I know that, look, I go in and I say to them, look, I know, it's EastEnders, and this is your house, and you know where you live, and you know what you do. But even though all of those things are true, why don't we try and just go for more truth here? Why don't we try and just kind of do... And actually they respond really well, because they're actors and they want to be directed. They want to be engaged in that way to tell the story the best way they can. So when I first went there, they said to me, people were like, oh, be careful with Steve McFadden, for example. He can be a bit tricky. He plays Phil. And I was like, well, why is he tricky? Well, maybe he's tricky with you, I don't know. But why would he be tricky? It's like saying, well, black people are kind of the same kind of, in your head you go, no, this is too easy to just dismiss people. So anyway, I meet them and I start chatting. He's a baby. Of course he is. He's a gorgeous man.
Well, this Tim Roth said the same thing though, isn't it?
Yeah.
In Tin's
yeah.
but I'm renowned for being told I'm a bit tricky, and then you said, well, you've not met me, basically, long and short of it, and you worked incredibly well because everyone's energy's different.
Of course, and also it's about what you're going in there to do. And I'm not I've said to them, I'm not in here to try and get a new show reel to show off what I can do with the camera. I don't care. I'm here to tell the story. So,
and what does it feel like, the fact that when you think about, you going to that person's place to watch an American program you can't recall, can't have been that.
Oh yeah, Mr. Dawkins.
Right, Mr. Dawkins, and then now you are hopping between all these shows that are sort of in popular culture and the zeitgeist and everything else. Many of them are multiracial, now, and the fact that you're in the centre of that, what does that feel like when you think about from where you started to being in that position?
Yeah. What does it feel like? I think the most important thing is the recognition from people of colour when you're working in that industry, because for a long time, there was just one way of looking at it. It was like all the HODs, heads of departments, were white, and all the people that made decisions were white, and then everybody else kind of did it. Now that's changing, and so for them to have somebody who's their director, I still get it. Even the supporting artists go to me, "Oh God, we're so glad you're here. There's a black woman." It's lovely, because you kind of go, well, yes, we should be. As I said, it's 2025, so
What do you think has sustained you over the last 40 years? You mentioned love, but what do you think has sustained you? Kept it, because another word that comes up that you often quote when the few times you've interviewed, excited. What gets you excited? So what sustains you, would you say?
Those two things, but also I'm determined. I'm kind of going, I'm not going to just let this go for nothing. It's too important. There's too many people that I've met along the way and that I haven't met yet that are going to be part of this whole incredible story. So that keeps you going. Of course it does. There's so much more I want to do. I've never done a show in Jamaica. And the last time I was out there, I saw quite a bit of theatre, and I was like, oh, please let me get my hands on it. Please, let me come and play. I would be so proud. And, my folks are dead now, but I think they would say, well done. I think it would be wonderful. I've got a play in my mind that I've had for a while that I wanted to, this is big dream, so again, I have to find someone that's going to give me the money. But what I wanted to do was do it as a kind of rep company that goes all around the Caribbean. So that we kind of have each island that we go to, we kind of start to swap the cast. So as it travels, the cast keeps changing and becomes really organic, and it's the same show, but it will go to all these islands so that we get...
A bit like what Hamilton did.
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
Is it written?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it written?
Which island does it come from?
Well, it's a Caribbean version of Medea. It's Picard.
Oh, fantastic.
That's the only play that you said you'd be willing to
I'd do again.
revive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I just want to end on this quote. I'm most probably the most famous writer, director, producer, female British Jamaican director you have never heard of. Right, I'm gonna say it again because
Sorry.
So I'm most probably the most famous writer, director, producer, female British Jamaican director you have never heard of. But thankfully, I know who I am. And hopefully we know a bit more of who you are as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.